Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the inaugural episode of the Foul Boys Sports Podcast. My name is Jeff Bevelheimer, and joining me is my boy Steve.
Hello.
And my boy Gimli.
Guten Abend.
All right, Steve, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
All right, my name's Steve, and I'm a Colts fan, and I've been a fan of football for about 10 years now. First game I ever watched was Colts and Patriots, where the Colts came back and won. Ever since I fell in love with the game. And yeah, that's basically my experience with the game of football.
My name's Gimli. I've been following football for about the past 8 years. I've been a Cowboys fan since 2013. I'm a certified homosexual. This is the main reason I started following the Cowboys.
And of course, I am Jeff, and I'm an Eagles fan. And I've been an Eagles fan for about as long as I can remember. I can't tell you the first game I watched, or the year, or anything. I just know I'm an Eagles fan.
There was a point in time where you were a Chargers fan.
We don't talk about those dark ages. That wasn't a good time for anybody.
It's almost like the time we were all, the two of us were Alabama fans.
Never happened for me.
Count yourself lucky. All right, so, boys, this was a wild and crazy wild card weekend here in the NFL. It's been one of the best we've seen here in the past few years, and luckily, our three teams all moved on to the divisional. Mm-hmm. So, I figure we just jump right into the recap of the first game here with Indianapolis and Houston.
Take it away, Steven.
Yeah, so if any of you watch this game, you know that Colts started out hot. You know that almost instantly you saw Andrew Luck and T.Y. Hayton straight down the field, Ebron for a touchdown. Houston had no answer. We went down again, scored another touchdown. Houston had no answer. Eventually, Luck would get picked off after a J.J. Watt batted ball. However, that did not lead to the points for the Houston Texans. We would go into the half at 21-0, and the Texans would never really recuperate. Our offense certainly slowed down. We were shut out in the second half, but Houston's offense never really got going. And when you look at this game, this is another instance in when Houston was at home during a playoff game, and they just did not come with the fire. You have to wonder, what really happened with the Texans? And in my opinion, a lot of this loss comes down to Bill O'Brien. I've seen it time and time again. Bill O'Brien has not had a fiery team in the postseason, has not had good quarterback play. This time, there's no excuse of a lack of talent. Deshaun Watson had a very bad game. He did not look, he looked very easily flustered. His mind did not look right. Very off-kilter. There was a bit of a Colts pass rush that helped with that, but I don't think it was significant enough for someone like Deshaun Watson's talent or level of play to stack up. Part of that was DeAndre Hopkins getting hurt late in the second, but even before them, he was easily flustered. And in my opinion, this is an instance of Bill O'Brien just not getting the job done.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And going back to the main question here of what happened to the Texans, the biggest thing that really jumps out to me is if you look at their defensive stats, they didn't manage to get to Luck at all and bring him down whatsoever. And that's really surprising to me when you have a front seven that includes, J.J. Watt and Jadeveon Clowney and Whitney Merciless. That's, J.J. Watt is easily the best defensive end in the league and one of the best in the history of the NFL. So it goes to show that this Colts offensive line is really locking down, and they've come to play here in the postseason.
Well, yeah, that's definitely another part of it, is that even when the Colts offense slowed down in the second half, our offensive line was mauling. Quentin Nelson, if you go back and watch some of that film, he was pancaking guys. He was taking on leaks in the backfield. That's a Brian Baldinger reference. But he was absolutely just killing it. Our entire offensive line created a lot of great pockets, particularly in the first half, where you just see just a cavern open up for Andrew Luck to step forward, be able to throw downfield easy. That's a lot of good pass rushers on that Texans defense, like you
Absolutely.
said. And, the rookies, Quentin Nelson and Braden Smith, an unsung hero of the line at right tackle, they just came to play. No sacks. One takeaway based on a block. J.J. Watt, he definitely tried very hard in this game. He really did. He actually got some decent penetration at times. But overall, it just was not good enough.
No.
Clearly.
And it
I'm
showed.
surprised at how well Marlon Mack was able to handle running through the holes the offensive line
Yes.
provided for him. Fantastic game for him. Don't know if it's sustainable, but it was definitely an outstanding performance from Marlon Mack, who absolutely ate my defensive alive a few weeks back.
Yeah, Marlon Mack, I'm not sold on him as a long-term solution to the running back position. I think that, he's taking advantage of a lot of these holes that the offensive line is creating.
Absolutely.
But for now, I think that production-wise, stat-wise, he's getting the job done. Our offensive line coaching is getting the job done. Our scheme is getting the job done. Andrew Luck, we're not in an era anymore in Indianapolis where we're relying on Luck to be Superman every game. If we don't have to throw the ball, we don't throw the ball. We didn't do it against the Cowboys. We didn't do it against, say, Oakland. We didn't do it against the Bills. If we don't have to throw the ball, we don't want to do that because our offensive line is so good that they're letting people like Marlon Mack have huge games. And this is an example of that. We just got a playoff win out of this.
Absolutely. Huge win for Indianapolis. Gives them a lot of momentum going forward. Being shut out in the second half kind of puts a damper on a little bit of that, but
Right.
I still trust all shucks Luck back there. I think he'll be just fine next week.
And then that brings me to another question: is these Colts? They've been on a very, very hot streak. Winning was it
They
10
were
out of the
1-5.
last 11?
10 out of the last 11, yeah.
10 out of the last 11 games, and that's extremely impressive in this league. But the biggest question is, can the Colts keep this hot streak going next week in Arrowhead?
Well, I think they can. From a production standpoint, I definitely don't think that they're going to get blown out in this game. I don't think anyone really expects them to, so watch it happen now. But I am concerned about things like the cold weather in Kansas City. But other than that, our offensive line is still great. It's still healthy. We're going to be able to run on Kansas City, but we'll get to that.
Absolutely.
Andrew Luck, he's maybe playing the best football of his career. I see less heroics, but I see less mistakes. Yes, he does have 15 interceptions, but his interception percentage is on par with a lot of people in this league. 2.2 interceptions per 100% pass attempts. That's not bad at all. And yeah, I think that we have a great culture, and that a lot of our players are very team-oriented. I think we're willing to do a lot for the team. We're not individuals. And I think we believe in our system, and I'm very excited to see us continue to have success against the Chiefs. Even if it doesn't produce a W, we're going to play very well.
Definitely.
And I'm very proud of what our culture was able to establish
No
this
pun
season.
intended, but you guys really lucked out with Frank Reich.
Yes. We turned a horrible
Indianapolis.
situation into something that, for right now, is very much working out.
Absolutely.
One thing I'll get into later, and the second half of this game was evident is that I'm still not convinced that, as opposed to Chuck Pagano, Wright can really make great halftime adjustments. I mean, for sure, the defense continued to play well, even after giving up that touchdown. There should have been a
absolutely.
pick. That was a drop pick. But they played extremely well in the second half. But offense looked off. Andrew Luck in the second half looked kind of off, missed open receivers. He did hit a big play to T.Y. Hilton, who T.Y. Hilton is playing on a bum ankle and is absolutely playing like one of the best receivers in the league. I think that's...
No argument there.
And he owns that stadium in Houston.
Yes, Hilton
That is-
Stadium.
that is T.Y. Hilton Stadium that the Houston Texans play in.
I think that, anytime you play a division rival, you get motivated.
Definitely.
But going back to my prior point, there wasn't a lot of offensive urgency in the second half, a lot of stagnance, a lot of 3-and-outs compared to the first half where Luck in the offense was just unstoppable. It just truly looked surgical out there. And, maybe if the situation arose where we needed more urgency, that maybe would have happened. But I would have really liked to see more consistency throughout the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that we've struck gold just yet, but this is about as good as you can do inaugurally.
Absolutely. Such a very young offensive line, and to hold such ferocious pass rushers to nothing is just phenomenal. They remind me a lot of the year before 2013. They remind me a lot of the Cowboys line from then. The year before they had, the best line in football. They're very young, they're very ferocious, and they're just absolutely killing it right now.
Definitely, and it's a very, very bright future for this Colts offense. But this does bring me to another question of, is the Colts defense one of the best of the remaining teams in the playoffs?
I don't think so.
I also don't think so. I mean, we've definitely been overachieving, before the season started. We were predicted to have one of the worst defenses. But we have, rookies, Darius Leonard, and then you have young guys. Malik Hooker's, it doesn't show up on a stat sheet, but he's been playing really well in coverage. People like Pierre Desir is playing really well. Denico Autry, I should say, has 9 sacks throughout the season. I believe he had a big sack in this game here. I'm thinking of Kenny Moore. But he did, we've been able to generate some pretty steady pass rush, but even the defense we just beat, I think, is better. I mean, their defensive line is much more talented than ours. They do have talented safeties, even if, someone like Malik and Clayton Geathers are maybe playing better as a unit right now. I think we're actually one of the, talent-wise, I think we're one of the worst defenses in the playoffs right now, I would say.
It's just, holding Houston to 7 points is very impressive. Especially, I recognize that this was Deshaun Watson's first start in the postseason.
Yes.
So that typically doesn't go well.
Yeah.
But, with playmakers like DeAndre Hopkins, it's hard.
They held him to 37 yards.
Well,
that is insane.
He wasn't having a very good first half, but it should be noted that he had I believe it was a separated AC joint at some point in the game. So at one point he was playing injured. So that didn't help Deshaun Watkins very much whenever it comes to being able to make plays against our defense. Mm-hmm. Our Tampa 2 is not really designed to give up a lot of big plays. Like I said, Malik Hooker is back there. He's got ball skills of like a young Ed Reed almost. So you don't get to really throw deep on him very often. We have a lot of speed in our linebacking core. Mm-hmm. So we give up a lot of stuff underneath. But we don't give up a lot of big plays unless your name's Eli Manning, apparently. But,
I think a thing that the Colts defense did very well in this game, as the stats show here, is that they shut down the Texans' biggest threat on offense and forced the Texans to try and beat them with somebody else, and then which they kind of did with Coutee here. 14 targets, 11 receptions, 110 yards, and a touchdown. That's the great stat line. But
Coutee's a stud. We played him earlier in the season, and I think he just recently got back from injury. And very speedy guy. They're going to be using him as kind of a jack of all trades guy. I could see him really blossoming in like a slot position, and one thing I do want to, mention, I think this is kind of a non-story as far as the future goes, but this Colts offense, or this Colts defense, I should say, really got lucky with a lot of the poor accuracy of Deshaun Watson, a lot of bad decision-making. His first interception, or his only interception of the game, he just did, his vision was very off. He did not see, I believe it was Kenny Moore there. And he just took advantage of that. There were a lot of throws, like a 4th down throw at the end of the first half. He could have hit Watkins, but he just missed. And there was pressure, but it's his first start in the playoffs, so I think he'll be fine. Historically, you see that typically quarterbacks who are making their first starts do not do well in the playoffs inaugurally.
One last point here I'm going to bring up about the Colts defense is I think by virtue of the fact that the Colts jumped out to such an early lead, that really helped them out with this. But when you look at the rushing lines for the Houston Texans, outside of Deshaun Watson, they shut down that running game with Lamar Miller. 5 attempts, 18 yards. That's
absolutely
nothing.
Abysmal.
Yeah, it's terrible, and it goes to show that this Colts defense. When they have to, they can shut it down.
That's the Darius Leonard effect. He really is that good whenever it comes to shutting down the run, and him and Anthony Walker both have definitely been a godsend when stopping runs. We haven't had a 100-yard rusher all season. We have had good performances by running backs. Joe Mixon had a good game against us. Derrick Henry was very strong against us. By and large, we've been able to stop a lot of rushing offenses. The big one that comes to mind for me is we held Saquon Barkley to under 50 yards rushing.
And Dallas.
That is definitely impressive with CJ and Saquon.
It's really odd if being a fan of the past 10 years, to see a Colts defense that can stop the run. Because whenever I started watching in the Manning era, you just saw offenses shred through their running backs. And it's like, nowadays, we make teams one-dimensional. So it's really refreshing to see as a Colts fan. Something to really get excited about for the future with this young talent.
Definitely. Like I said, both really bright offense on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
Gimli.
Impressive win from the Colts. We'll see if they can carry the momentum on into Arrowhead Stadium.
Very important.
One thing I would like to say, again, the Deshaun Watson thing, unless they keep Bill O'Brien long-term, it looks like that's what they're doing right now. But I think eventually this playoff misstep. I think this game meant nothing from that standpoint. I mean, you would have loved to see him go out and have a good game, but he'll get his. He doesn't have a very good offensive line right now. If they get that short up, get Will Fuller back, get a good offensive coordinator in there, I think he'll be just fine. So, Houston Texans, don't panic. Deshaun Watson will be fine for the future.
Right. Next on the list, Gimli, your team. They managed to pull out probably one of the second closest game here in the wild card weekend. It was a really impressive win that they pulled out late. And what are your thoughts on that?
I was honestly surprised. Dak Prescott showed me a lot in this game. I mean, he is who he thought he was going to be. He's not the drop back and throw for 400 yards every game. But that man has got a heart the size of Texas. When you look at the run with the quarterback draw on 3rd 16, that was a phenomenal play.
Then this brings us to the first question. As a whole, do you think the Cowboys are for real? Do you think this could be the season that they finally break this curse, get past the divisional round, and maybe even make a run at the Super Bowl?
The way the defense is playing right now, they're playing lights out. The way we stop the run, we're very good against the pass. It's a very good defense. We play very well complementary football. The way we run the ball and control the clock, keep the opposing quarterback off the field. Dak Prescott, it just depends on which one we get. Are we going to get Dak Prescott that's going to fumble every time he gets sacked, or are we going to get Dak Prescott throwing a big deep bomb down to Amari Cooper for the game-winning touchdown? It really depends. The offensive line is playing a lot better than they were mid-season. They handled a very, very hungry, very ferocious Seattle front four. And Zeke Elliott had a humongous game. This was Zeke's game.
Definitely.
He was eating with 2 hands. It was a phenomenal game from that standpoint.
Something that's really impressive that really kind of goes to prove this point is that Seattle they're one of those teams that you always want to watch out for if you let them into the playoffs.
Absolutely.
They're always dangerous. They're always hungry. They're always looking for more. And Dallas was able to shut them down. They were one and done. And that is something impressive, especially with Russell Wilson on the other side of the ball.
Absolutely. Holding them to only 233 yards and a touchdown is just phenomenal, which I think they would have had a better shot if they would have let Russell throw it a little bit more. But at the same time, it's a double-edged sword. If you do that, then you're going to have DeMarcus Lawrence, Randy Gregory, Malik Collins all over him all games. Their offensive line was not very well in this game.
Right. One big question that I've been kind of thinking to myself here these past few weeks is the Amari Cooper trade better than the Khalil Mack trade? Because the production coming out of Amari Cooper has been it revived this Dallas offense.
100%. I thought we were looking for a top 10 pick when we were sitting at 3-5, and then to come around and win 7 of the last 8 was honestly just mind-boggling.
Definitely, I think with it really shows because I didn't think the Cowboys were going to make it to the playoffs.
No,
I didn't think they had a chance. I think it was like you said, a top 10 pick. But Amari Cooper, he revived this offense. He turned it around. Obviously not single-handedly, but it gave y'all a threat, a person to work with, and I think that is huge.
100%. Amari Cooper really helps free up Zeke Elliott because now with Amari Cooper running routes back there, you can't really consistently keep 8 men in the box and just focus solely on shutting down Zeke.
Right.
If you shut down Zeke, you're giving it up to Amari. If you shut down Amari, you're giving it up to Zeke. It's really a double-edged sword there.
Yeah, I think I know the worst of this deal because he did kind of put up 3 touchdowns on us in overtime loss. It's not fun. Not fun. It's not fun.
That was a fun game. You're crazy.
You got anything to throw in there, Steve?
Only thing I want to bring up is I just want to reinforce that whenever you look at the rushing attempts by Seattle and you look at a low number of pass attempts relatively in 2019, 27, I think you're talking about the difference between a chance in hell and a snowball's chance in hell whenever Russell Wilson is only throwing 27 balls a game when he is one of the most accurate quarterbacks.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the Cowboys have a great pass rush, right? DeMarcus Lawrence is having a great year.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, but Russell Wilson's one of the best scrambling quarterbacks in the league. And whenever it comes to
best.
Undoubtedly.
Absolutely. And whenever it comes down to either scrambling out of the pocket, looking downfield, finding someone, obviously Russell Wilson is premier. You cannot get better than Russell Wilson right now, I believe. And just to have him throw 27 times, I mean, look, I understand that, that leads to riskier passes. Maybe not from Russell Wilson because he's a very good decision maker. That can lead to a lot of bad turnovers. But I think you just got to try a little more than that. You can't be running on first and second down if it's not working.
Absolutely
13
not.
attempts for 20 yards. That's not it. That's not it.
Not even close.
That's not winning football. I mean, why do you guys think that they strayed away from Russell Wilson? Was there anything you guys saw in game that would maybe shine some light onto why Russell Wilson didn't get the load that he probably should have gotten in this game?
I think it just comes back to the way their offensive line's playing. Like I say, if Russell Wilson's dropping back 40 times, those sack numbers are going to go from 1 to there's no telling how many. That's just how good the defensive line is. They just had to keep them off Russell Wilson.
But I don't know. I just feel like you have to adjust.
Absolutely.
If it's not working, then it's not working. And I
Right.
see 18 for 27, 2 of 33. That's not bad. That's very efficient.
Right, yeah.
So, I mean, you have to put the ball in the hands of your best player.
100%.
And that's Russell Wilson.
Speaking of Russell Wilson, yeah, this was a close game, and Russell Wilson is good in these close games. He has this sort of magic about him. And do you guys think that maybe with this game, Russell's magic has run out?
Absolutely not.
Not
The
even
end of the
close.
game, I mean, he nearly came back and won.
Mhm.
I mean, well, not really because they didn't recover the onside kick, which I don't know if that was an onside kick.
By the way,
Nobody knows what that was.
the worst onside kick in the
Yeah.
history of everything. R.I.P. Sebastian Janikowski.
Yeah, that's one thing we really didn't talk about is that losing your kicker like that.
That's a big time.
That's probably big.
impact.
That was very
Definitely
big.
big. Not probably. It's absolutely big. I mean,
Absolutely big.
they could have been able to be maybe a little bit more conservative and not taking so many risks.
Mm-hmm.
And hey, I mean, it was a 2-point loss. 3 field goals were 3. So
Well, maybe conservative in choosing conversion or not, but I think that being conservative is actually what lost in this game,
Definitely.
or at least being stubborn
right.
in the offensive philosophy.
absolutely.
And I think that when you look at their offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer, I mean, you look back to he was the one who coached Mark Sanchez back in New York during the Rex Ryan days, and I think this is I think you gotta evaluate that and understand you want someone who can really get a feel for your personnel a little better, possibly.
right.
One player I would really like to talk about in this game that I think really made a unsung big time difference is Tavon Austin on special teams, like
Absolutely.
bringing the kickoffs back out so far, giving us great field position
Yeah.
most of our drives.
Huge
That was
impact.
a big time swing in this game.
Huge impact. So, I mean, is Jerry Jones Satan? I mean, he's got to be, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's either that or he has a deal with the devil.
Oh, he
There's
sold
no
his soul
other-
years ago.
Well, he's talked about his deal with God that he made, that if the Cowboys won that last Super Bowl there, he wouldn't ask for it again. And he said that he's broken that promise many times. So, he's certainly going to hell in that regard.
That is true. And since then,
Poor
the
guy.
Cowboys haven't made it past the divisional round. And that's what we're headed to this week. So I guess we will see, and we will talk about that later. But moving forward, boys, something of a surprise, at least to myself. Los Angeles Chargers, 23 over the Baltimore Ravens with a score of 17.
Yeah, man.
What do you guys think of that?
I mean, I have felt so many emotions during this game. So if you looked early, Baltimore was fumbling all over the place. Lamar was just not being able to take care of the football. Some of that was good plays by the defense, and some of that was just an inexperienced rookie quarterback not really being all there. Lamar was putrid for much of this game.
Right.
Not that he was
Definitely.
really asked to open it up. He only had 10 pass attempts going into the fourth quarter, but that speaks to the level of confidence you have in your quarterback as a passer and come playoff football. I don't know about that one, Chief. But, the Chargers, I think the big story of this game is Chargers culture and how it's been able to translate through multiple coaches. Started with Norv Turner. You just remember all those talented Norv Turner teams. And not all of that lack of success was their fault, but it seems like it's always something. Against the Patriots long ago, Phillip Rivers tears his ACL. Nate Kading not being able to get it done against the Broncos. This Chargers, I guess, just choking culture seems to continue. And they almost, thanks to Melvin Gordon getting that. I believe it was Melvin Gordon creating that strip sack. They were able to avoid that.
Melvin Ingram, I think you mean.
Melvin Ingram. Did I say Melvin Gordon?
Yeah.
But, I wonder about this Chargers team. I really want to believe that, because Phillip Rivers, he played about as well as he could. I mean,
Right. I mean,
it was between the 20s. He was, efficient. He, didn't make many mistakes. He made some wonky passes, but that's Phillip Rivers. He created magic whenever it got inside the red zone. That Ravens defense is just so good. They just swarmed all over him.
yeah, and his numbers don't jump off the page at you. I mean, was that 22 out of 32 for 160 yards? I mean, that's.
Yeah.
Look at that. You're like, oh, Phillip Rivers won them this game, but that's exactly what they needed him to do.
Absolutely.
It was the Baltimore
he managed
defense.
again. Yeah, and that is going to show how good this Baltimore defense is, which is surprising for me because I thought this was a lock. I thought the Ravens were going to take care of business here. Like, and I am so surprised that these Chargers were actually able to come out and do this. And I guess it's because Lamar was so weak during the first part of this game.
Look at how many of these Chargers are able to get involved whenever it comes to giving disruptions in the pass game. Melvin Ingram's 2 sacks. Phillips here, 1 interception. King, sack. Nwosu, sack. Bosa, sack. Jones, sack. Rochelle, sack. There's so many people getting involved on defense.
Yeah,
And,
that is-
clearly I don't know everyone's name. But what I'm saying is that you've got a committee of people who were able to get to an inexperienced quarterback multiple times.
Absolutely, and that's why I thought that this is exactly the way this game was going to go. I was the only one out of the 3 of us to pick the Chargers to win this game. They have a much more balanced team. Their roster is much better. I knew that Baltimore's defense was going to keep them in the game no matter what happened on the offensive side of the ball. Lamar Jackson just didn't show up. It's his first playoff game, and I think they really learned a lot from their matchup earlier in the regular season. They tried to play him more conventionally and try to play him like you would a regular quarterback. In this game, they keyed more on the run, and they tried to keep him contained.
They really tried to limit his involvement with things that limitations to him.
Absolutely.
That brings me to a question. Like, do you guys think that Lamar Jackson is really the guy for Baltimore? I mean, he is one of these mobile quarterbacks, and outside of Mike Vick, really, and RG3 showed promise. But
Cam Newton, absolutely.
Cam Newton, yeah.
Cam Newton's a thick boy, though.
He is. But I mean,
Yeah, that's my fear with Lamar Jackson. He might eventually get hurt.
Yeah.
So look, Lamar Jackson is incredibly talented whenever it comes to running on the ground. That's no secret to literally anyone who watches football.
Mm-hmm.
He has a very strong arm. Like, he's very strong whenever it comes to being able to put the ball down the field. He's clearly not all there as a passer. I mean, I'm just saying, things that are obvious. But I think he'll eventually get better with some offensive stability. I don't know if I trust the Ravens with hiring great offensive coordinators when it comes to developing passers. I think John Harbaugh should really look into someone who's experienced with that. I don't know who that would be. It kind of sucks that Dirk Cutter kind of got taken up. But
he's already hired today, yeah.
look, I think that he can be fine with the right type of coaching. He's clearly got some Tebow magic in him. If Chargers game, they were winning a lot of games with this system they have. I just don't know if it's replicatable, if that makes any sense.
Right.
You're not going to be able to give your quarterback that many rushing attempts in a game and expect that to be sustainable. Not in this league. The people, they hit way too hard. They're way too big and fast. He has got to become a better thrower of the football. I'm not saying he's a bad thrower of the football. He can throw a beautiful spiral. But he's got to really key in on that part of his game this offseason. If he can do that, he can be phenomenal.
I think my take at the end of the day is that he's so talented that I think that he'll do well, but he can't get hurt, and he has to grow in some form because
Definitely.
this was not a good showing for him. I mean, again, he had the Tebow magic to end the game, but he looked putrid for so long.
Oh, yeah. You can't overcome that. Not when you've got guys like Bosa and Ingram coming after your head for the entire
it really
game.
shows here with the numbers from this Los Angeles defense with, 3 takeaways, 7 sacks.
Yeah.
That is huge.
Imagine, if you will, fans begging for Flacco. I mean, they were very vocal about their dislike for Lamar Jackson coming out for a lot of those last. I mean, they shut it down by the end of the game, but.
It is definitely an impressive game by this Chargers defense, and
Both defenses,
both
really.
defenses really. But just the 7 sacks. That's just such a huge number. It just jumps off the page, slaps you in the face. It shows you that, hey, the Chargers are here. And that brings me to another question. Like, are the Chargers done chargering? Because everybody knows what that means. You know the Chargers. They choke. They do what they do best. They lose games they should win.
They were the only team to give the Cleveland Browns a win in 2016.
15? Something like that. I don't know.
One of the two.
2016.
One in 15.
I think that this is an indication. This game is an indication. Just letting them come back with so little time left and putting themselves in the situation where they really could have lost this game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Part of that was, again, Lamar Jackson's Tebow magic. He made some good throws, gave a couple of guys some opportunities, but a lot of that was just miracle stuff. And with these Chargers, it feels like multiple times during the game, particularly when the second half started, I felt like there were plays against the Chargers that made it to where they could have let the opponent back in the game if they had, maybe a more competent offense to be able to take advantage of it. But, there was a fumble during the third quarter that was recovered by the Ravens, and Justin Tucker missed a field goal. Mm-hmm. And there goes that momentum. There was a blocked kick that they were able to get nothing out of. And it just felt like, I don't know, it felt like one way or another, the Chargers were about to start charging again. And now we're going into Foxborough, and
we'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
So, sort of getting out of the hardcore football realm here. I mean, with two very successful teams, I mean, obviously both of them are in the postseason, one with a bye. Do you think Los Angeles can succeed as a football town? I mean, with the Rams and the Chargers, there's got to be some interest drawing in some of these people there.
There's just so much to do in LA. I think that I just don't feel like the Chargers were the team to do it with. Maybe the Rams had some support back in the day, but I think the Chargers are dead in the water if they ever, get really bad.
I think any football fandom in Los Angeles probably belongs to the Rams and the Cowboys. For being honest.
I think that probably the Raiders too.
Yeah, the Raiders for sure.
The Raiders are still very popular. I know, but
I guess in closing in this game, for the fellow urinating tree listeners, fuck you, Spanos!
He is terrible.
Moving onward to the final, in my opinion, and probably plenty of people's opinions, this was the most exciting game. Philadelphia 16, Chicago 15.
Barn burner.
Wow. So, I mean, like, this game is incredible. It's exactly what most people I listen to and heard people talking about, what they thought it was going to be. I mean, this is a very low-scoring game. These two defenses, these points were very hard to come by. So, I mean, like, what do you guys think about it?
Was that a catch?
The thing is, this is one of the stupidest calls in NFL history. I hate it.
It felt like they were making it up on the fly.
They did. And these refs, to those of you who have watched this game, they were drunk. They were high. They were fucked up somehow. Did you hear them talk? The ball is going back, first down.
And the ball will remain.
And the ball will remain. Thank you.
We're going to keep playing with the football, ladies and gentlemen.
It's like a Metallica lyric. And the ball will remain.
It's just insane. Like, it seemed like nobody knew what they were talking about. But, I mean, it should have been a catch. That should have been a catch and a forced fumble. But their reasoning to why it wasn't ruled a catch is because there wasn't a clear recovery. Like, that's so stupid. Like, I mean,
it's very convenient for them that, if it was a clear catch, then, they would have had to figure out who has possession, and that would have been a big controversy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just very bare bones looking at the rules, I say it should have been a catch, and the forced fumble with no recovery, I mean, it should have reverted to the Bears. The Bears could have had the ball on, the 3 or 4 yard line. But that could have changed the complexion of the game, but it worked out probably in Philadelphia's favor. I think the Bears still got 3. Yeah, they definitely got 3 on that possession, took the lead into the halftime. But yeah, I mean, that was just stupid. Ridiculous.
Question. How the hell does Foles keep pulling these damn rabbits out of his hat? I just don't get it. Like, I hate it, but it's just so amazing to watch.
Yeah, tell me about our Lord and Savior Nick Foles. And
boys, ladies and gentlemen, everybody, I think Nick Foles is proof that God is real. I mean, how does he do it? He just wins.
Yes,
it doesn't matter.
He was perfect in this game.
Like, see, the thing is, it doesn't matter. He doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, we got bad Nick Foles in this game. We got terrible Nick Foles.
You didn't get terrible Nick Foles.
He's
He
not the
made
worst.
some good throws.
It's not the worst Nick Foles we've ever seen, but I mean,
You got Nick Foles. What can I say? You got Nick Foles.
the first interception he threw to Roquan Smith wasn't really terrible. I mean, he hit Wendell Smallwood. It probably should have been a better pass. It wouldn't have been picked off, but Roquan Smith just made a play. But I mean, that second pass, my God, dude, just throwing it up there into quadruple coverage to try to make a play. It's like he forgot he was Nick Foles. He's trying to be, this MVP quarterback.
Brett Favre, basically.
Brett Favre, yeah, he's just throwing.
And in
up
that
there.
moment, he was.
It was just terrible to see that. But I mean, he won. Nick Foles won. He's going to New Orleans because he's Nick Foles. That's the only explanation I can think of. It's just Nick Foles. He wins.
I mean,
Period.
when I watched that the game-winning touchdown drive, he just made some throws. There was a throw to Ertz that we talked about shortly before the show around the 10-yard line where he just threw it between two Bears defenders, just take some balls to be able to make a throw like that.
Oh, absolutely.
But he's not thinking about, the pressure that's on him or the expectations because he doesn't really have expectations, really, if you think about it, because he's Nick Foles.
He doesn't get so many expectations outside of Philadelphia. But I mean, we all saw him last year when the Super Bowl run. He obviously Super Bowl MVP performance. He has some expectations in that way.
Yeah.
But I mean, the guy, he's just calm. He is cool and
Yes.
collected. And even Doug Peterson said this to a point to where he said it's scary. It's like you're not even sure he's alive.
Well, it's
Because
like
he's just so calm and he's making the plays. Like it's like the scoreboard doesn't even exist. He's just out there playing football.
Well, it's like he has every excuse in the world to not be clutch. You know what I'm saying? Like,
He's just got that gene in him.
Right.
yeah,
Don't
Eagles.
understand.
The Eagles are very hurt. They could be the Packers right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like they could be out of the playoffs, and instead Nick Foles chose to be, Nick Foles. Same thing before with Eli Manning and Joe Flacco. They have the excuse because then people don't necessarily expect great things of them. But whenever the playoffs come around, why not try to be great?
Yeah.
And he's trying to be great.
He's definitely being great. I mean, we got bad Nick Foles the other way. Hey, maybe next week is sort of like a comparison to last season where we saw bad Nick Foles against the Falcons, and then next season he absolutely destroyed the best defense in the league that season.
Nick Foles had a fantastic game. Well, I wouldn't say fantastic, but did enough to win it. But switching to the other side, how do you guys feel about Mitch Trubisky moving into the future? For one, I was very impressed with him. He played a hell of a lot better than I thought he was going to in this game.
Played better, yes.
Out of the three quarterbacks making their first start in the postseason, who all went 0-3, but I think Mitch Trubisky played the best game. I mean, he made plays, he made throws, and they were all very impressive. I mean, the stat line, it's not crazy, but I mean, 26-43, 303 yards, that's very good. I think that's the most yards out of any of the other two. And a touchdown. But, I mean, he made throws when they counted. He definitely did get away with a lot. I mean, there's two interceptions that probably should have happened. Devontae Maddox just drags his left foot against the ground, and that's a pick. And then Trey Sullivan had a ball bounce off his chest in the end zone, which... but, hey, it happens. Yeah, I mean, I think Mitch Trubisky is impressive. And, I mean, if they keep developing him, and I think Matt Nagy is a very good coach for him
He's
to have
a
in the
good
future.
I thoroughly enjoy Swaggy Nagy.
But does he know the names of everyone on the Eagles defense?
Oh, he's no Sean McVay, that's for sure. Not in that
He's
way.
not part of the Big Brain Society.
Yeah.
But I mean, Mitch looked like, I think, around what you'd expect of him coming out of college, even though he's a second-year pro, so but very accurate. I thought of those deep throws late in the game were accurate. He got him down.
Right, yeah.
He's a very athletic quarterback. Maybe he didn't get to use his legs as much, but he had some good leg work.
I mean, for all intents and purposes, he led him on the game-winning drive if Parkey hits that field goal.
Yeah.
Which I would also like to take a brief moment to thank Parkey for missing that field goal and sending the Cowboys to LA.
Don't think Parkey. God, his name is escaping me right now, but Hester.
Mm-hmm.
Hester. He actually
Trayvon Hester.
Trayvon Hester, thank you. He actually got a finger on that ball, tipped it, and it was just enough.
Yeah.
The doink, doink, dub.
Yep. It was a triple doink, as Reddit pointed out.
It was a triple doink.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
because he
one
donked
off
off his
the side.
finger, then doink, doink, doink.
Boom, boom.
Doink, 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 dub. even better.
Cody Parkey said he thought he hit a good ball, and it seems that may have been the case because,
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously very close. And I think that the finger actually, was what won the game for Philadelphia.
I mean, you'll never know.
Never know. But
Let's get the dude away from the death threats.
yeah,
Not
let's not murder Cody.
This wasn't
No.
this wasn't the Blair Walsh thing.
He's
No.
not Mort Anderson.
No, definitely not.
Ooh, that was another bad one.
But so I mean, going back to the Mitch Trubisky being the guy in Chicago, do you think this is a bright future for Chicago, or do you think they're a one-season wonder?
I mean, I don't know if they're going to necessarily play as well as they did this season. It depends on the progression of Mitch Trubisky. For one, injuries always happen. I mean, a lot of talent on that defense. Fuller, Mack is now there. Roquan Smith. I think Nagy's good, man.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they'll play as good as they did last year because it's hard to be 12-4, but
yeah,
Especially in that division.
especially in that division.
and with their biggest selling point being defense,
Absolutely.
that's a very hard thing to carry over from season to season.
I mean, just look at the Vikings from last season to this season. They still have a very good defense, but it was not groundbreaking enough to get them back in the postseason.
No,
Still a lot of talent, though. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
they're kind of a sleeping giant in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah. 3 teams right now are very hot in the playoffs, and it just so happens are 3 teams. So out of these 3 teams, the Eagles, the Colts, and the Cowboys, who do you guys think is the hottest team left going in the divisional round of the playoffs?
I think that the somewhat the spiritual momentum. I think everyone wants to see the Eagles win the Super Bowl again. Whose name is not Gimli. Everyone outside of the NFC just wants to see the Eagles because just the meme potential there is so high. So I think everyone's with the Eagles. I think Indianapolis is statistically
The hottest.
the stars,
agree
and I
with you,
think
yes.
that Indianapolis has the best road, per se.
The only argument I would have against that is the just punt fest in the second half between the Colts and the Texans.
I agree.
That concerns me. That kind of
agree.
kills
you
down
have
some
to be able
momentum.
to
I
keep
mean-
that up against Kansas City.
Whereas the Eagles and the Cowboys both have, big time, pressure packed, game winning drives to go down there and put your team ahead and win the game.
Mm-hmm.
That's really the only argument I have against that.
Yeah, I think it's just for the Eagles, for them being so hot right now, it just feels like they can't lose. It's like the Eagles, they're not losing. They're not going to lose. I'm calling it right now. The Eagles are Super Bowl 53 champions. It's
I can't-
happening again.
You're-
Back-to-back Super Bowl MVP.
So you're going back into the dome. You're going against Drew Brees in the playoffs. They're not going to. I don't think they're going to score 51 points on you guys again
No, not even close. But we'll get to that in the next episode.
in the next episode.
Next episode,
Second.
second part, whatever, however you guys want to call it.
Well,
Yeah, believe that wraps up the first part of this podcast, the first portion at least. We might split this up into 2 different episodes. Who knows? But that was the recaps, and next we'll be moving on to the next week's previews and what we think will happen. And at the end, we'll make our picks. So thank you for listening to the very first edition of the Foul Boy Sports Podcast. We'll see you next time.